Welcome to our channel Correct Steps Education, Dwarka More Metro Station, Gate number 2, New Delhi. This dictation created by Chandar Shekhar Sir. Get ready to take dictation at the speed of 120 words per minute. Countdown start. 3, 2, 1. Start.
It will be an unusual start to the new year for Delhi. The city will be subject to the much-discussed driving restrictions, according to which between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. most private vehicle operators will only be able to take their vehicles out on alternate days, from Monday through Saturday, depending on whether their license plate numbers are odd or even. The restrictions were devised after the Delhi High Court likened the city to a gas chamber and ordered the Delhi government and the central government as well as the Delhi Pollution Control Committee to produce an action plan to tackle the city's alarming levels of air pollution. In early December, the city, which had already been declared the world's most polluted city by the World Health Organization, recorded a level of atmospheric particulate matter that was 10 to 16 times higher than what is considered safe. Other cities have similar stories to tell. In Bogota, Colombia traffic restrictions have been in place since 1989 under the peak and plate regulations, whose current form includes driving restrictions based on license plates from 6 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. and from 3 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. on all weekdays and from 6 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. in the city center. Unsurprisingly, this has not solved the pollution problem, it has exacerbated it. In the absence of an adequate public transport solution, car-owning residents of Bogota started getting to work progressively earlier to beat tightening restrictions. Closer to home, China too introduced driving restrictions in Beijing for a limited period during the 2008 Olympics before making them more permanent. When compared to research on other cities, there is less agreement on whether driving restrictions were effective in Beijing. One cited reason for the more favorable impact on pollution levels, from researchers who reached this conclusion, is that the automobile stock is newer and more fuel efficient than the Mexican auto stock. Some research findings also say air quality was not impacted or impacted slightly negatively, while traffic congestion eased up. According to the Economic Survey of Delhi 2014-15, 31% of Delhi's households were using bicycles, 39% were using scooters and motorcycles, and just 21% cars. Change in aspirations in India. Car ownership is an aspiration as individuals get wealthier. There are different attitudes to public transport across generations and geographies. In the United States, for example, there is a greater reluctance to use public transport except in large cities serviced by mature metro and bus systems and across Generation Y. On the other hand, most of Europe and parts of East and Southeast Asia are more public transport friendly. At the heart of the longer-term solution to Delhi's current transport pollution problem is a shift in attitudes and aspirations. This is going to require a comprehensive strategy from the government targeting all populations from the child in the classroom to the retiree to create a stronger culture of public transport across the board. When underlying values change, behavioral changes are often not far behind. However, shifting values can take time, and transport mode choice can be influenced concomitantly at the behavioral level. Behavioral economics offers many transport-related experiments conducted in other cities. Behavioral incentives, some of which are already in place in most cities and systems, range from the simple and obvious, such as congestion charging or building speed breakers, to the more complex and subtle, such as providing incentives to companies that allow their employees to telecommute. A careful application of these strategies can help transition larger numbers of people to more frequent public transport use. If a city were to encourage people through behavioral incentives to use public transport, that posits the existence of a reliable public transport system with sufficient capacity to meet the additional demand. This is certainly not the case in Delhi or most large cities in India. Delhi's metro transports approximately 2.4 million people per day, according to government data. At the end of Phase I and II of its construction, the system covered 190 kilometers and has a planned expansion to 405 kilometers by 2021. However, according to a 2014 study by the Transport Research and Injury Prevention Program at the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi over 80% of metro riders take long trips of more than 10 kilometers, while only 17% of trips in Delhi are 10 kilometers or more. The research suggests that transport policies need to focus on modes that cater to short trips, including non-motorized transport. Another finding is that the metro overestimated its ridership by at least 75%. Planning and forecasting carefully for the remaining phases is crucial. As far as buses are concerned, this newspaper recently reported that despite Delhi's 4,700 DTC and 1,500 cluster buses, the city has a shortfall of at least 10,000 buses. These are severe bottlenecks to a medium to long-term solution to the automobile pollution problem. An opportunity to collect data is the fortnight of restriction then without value. Far from it. Apart from a reduction in emissions for the period itself, it offers an opportunity to collect limited data, limited partly because behavioral changes over a fortnight are not going to be reflective of longer-term behavioral changes if the restrictions were to become permanent. For instance, if the experience of other cities is anything to go by, individuals who can afford to buy one or more additional cars are unlikely to do so just to tide them over a fortnight. Policymakers therefore need to interpret the January data with caution. Perhaps the most valuable insights from next month's traffic experiment will not be collected by the government and transport specialists but by ordinary citizens.